You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to the writingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS. Together as one, we get it done.
Hello and welcome to a very special Tuesday edition of the Writing Community Chat Show. Thanks for joining us. Please stick around for this amazing interview. Hello and thank you for joining us here on a Tuesday evening. If you are into all things writing and you've watched the show before, then you will know that tonight's guest is somebody that we talked about before we even knew who they were in terms of award-winning authors. But we promoted the Kindle Storyteller Award multiple times on the show, and we encouraged you to enter. And we actually have with us tonight the winner of this year's award. So we're going to chat all about what makes a award-winning novel, which is something that we don't get to do on a regular basis, which is fantastic. So if you're watching in the chat or you're listening back to this on the podcast, thank you. We really do hope you're going to pick up some amazing tips to help your writing move on in its course. Chris is hidden in the bushes somewhere. Don't know where he is. He's hiding, but he's not with us tonight. He will be with us on Friday. But wherever you are, Chris, I hope you stay safe and you come back and head the show on Friday. But tonight's guest, as I said before, an award-winning author now. Absolutely fantastic to get to speak to them. And yeah, I'm going to introduce them because that's probably the best way. So, ladies and gentlemen, Pip Landers-Letts. And I knew I was going to butcher that, but here she is.
Hey Chris, how you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me along. And when you say, every time anybody says award-winning author, I'm like, where? Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's you now, definitely. So before we get into the road to writing, obviously, let's address the award-winning author status. How did it feel? Can you talk us through the sort of moment that you shortlisted and then you found out? Take us through that journey if you can.
So I think when I got the email about being shortlisted, I was like, this is a scam. This isn't real. I remembered entering the competition, but I hadn't kind of then, it was my second novel. So I entered with my first, never heard anything. And then, yeah, so when I got the email from Amazon, I was like, nah. And then they were like, oh, we'll give you a call. I'm like, yeah, sure you will. So I was like, okay, yeah, well, let's see what this is all about. So had the phone call and I'm like, this is still a scam. And I think right up until the point of the award ceremony, I turned up to Amazon's offices thinking they're not going to let me in. It's just like now really elaborate because I've signed paperwork. And then did let me in and then we're standing in a line with the other finalists and my name was read out and I'm like, what? Really? And yeah, I think I just spent like the week afterwards expecting to wake up at any moment, like genuinely couldn't. I've never had like that sustained feeling for so long that I'm dreaming, this isn't real. And yeah, I think it's like, even now I still go and occasionally just touch the trophy to make sure that I haven't dreamt that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. It's a surreal feeling. Hello to people in the chat. Welcome to you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Do you have the trophy to hand by any chance? Or
no, I don't. I didn't want to be that person.
I completely understand that. So when you take us back then, if you can, before the standing in line and receiving the trophy, obviously you wrote the novel and then you decided to enter the competition. So what was kind of going through your mind at that point?
Well, I think because it's like one of the tags on the metadata, I didn't really think about it twice. I was like, well, I may as well. I didn't know what else to put in all those boxes, so I'll put that in there too. So it just felt like a bit of a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't I enter? Yeah, it really didn't feel like a big consideration for me. And I'm proud of what I've written. I'm proud of my work, and I wanted it to be recognized. I think, like with my first one, I foolishly believed it was like, I have written like Ulysses. I've written the next great British book. And I was like, yeah, it's definitely going to win, because I went to the London Book Fair, and I remember like hearing them talking about it, and I hadn't published at that point in time. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to enter it and I'm going to win this competition. And then I didn't win, and I was like, oh, well, no, I didn't win it. But then published my second, thought, oh, well, I'll put it on again, see if it happens. And then I didn't believe it when it did happen. So yeah. But yeah, I think my advice to anyone, if they're thinking about entering, just do it. Like, you've got nothing to lose. I did it and I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that as well, obviously, you said you had obviously confidence in your writing and you were proud of what you've written. But how difficult is it going from that book one where you're like, I've written the next great British book, and then going on to book two with a new idea and putting your confidence into something else?
I think it's challenging. I think it's like, it feels like, they say the difficult second album, don't they? So there is that, like, I've written this thing that I think it's the best thing I've ever done, and then like I spent 9 months putting it through like a critique group and them tearing it apart and going, this is not the best thing you've ever done, and then making it the best thing I'd ever done, to then going, oh, what now? What do I do now? Do I write another? How do I write another? How do I better that? And now I'm kind of writing the third novel, and I'm thinking, oh God, I've set the bar really high now. So yeah, I think you just got to keep going. You just got to keep putting things out there. And I know myself when what I'm pushing out is good. I know when it feels like I get excited about my own writing when it's good. And I can tell. And when it's not good, I can also feel that as well. I'm like in the weeds of it, going, oh, this feels tough. But the only way out is through sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, Ross says in the chat, pressure.
Oh yeah.
So, we'll elaborate a little.
Dully, that's my big question.
Yeah. So obviously, once you've won an award, and obviously we talked about the Kindle Storyteller coming with quite a big prize as well, actually attached to it. What does that do then for the pressure on the third book in terms of how you're feeling about it? So
I would say certainly, like, my route into publishing, choosing to be independent, it comes with a lot of benefits, but it also comes with this kind of crushing self-doubt. Like, I have chosen to do this, and you do kind of ask yourselves those questions. Was it because I wasn't good enough? No, I chose to do it. I stopped querying intentionally. It's not because I'm not good enough. I chose this. So stop doing that. And then you'll get, like, there's a guy said to me recently, oh, when are you going to write a real book? I'm like, what do you mean a real book? Like, I've written a real book. I now wonder if I've got the award, if he still thinks that. But yeah, I think for me, winning this was a huge shot of validation. Like, I now feel like I can legitimately call myself an author, even though I was an author. I feel like it's like, and I'm not saying that people that haven't won an award can't do that, but for me, it just feels like it's bolstered everything inside me. Like, I felt for so long that this is exactly what I'm meant to be doing. And it feels like now the universe has went, yeah. Keep going. So yeah, it's very, very bolstering. And I think as well, like, I've noticed the reaction of people around me. So not like, not my readers, but like my friends and family. And they're like, oh, you can actually do this. It's not just a hobby. This is a real thing you want to do. This is going to be a genuine career. And that's how I feel now. Like, I started to believe it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've won the award, you've received the prize as well. What are your next steps then from that point? How do you sort of navigate the sort of week after winning the Kindle Storyteller Award?
So it's for the first week after. Specifically, like I said, I was pinching myself daily, going, am I dreaming? I was trying to get my head back, because as I said, I'm writing my third at the moment, and I'm quite strict with my word count and what I write, and I give myself a very hard time when I don't hit what I want to achieve. So it was just trying to get my head back into that, and I couldn't. I've been all over the place. Like, I've only just started coming back down, and then I had a release date yesterday for my audiobook, and my head's gone again. I'm like, this is surreal. So I think, and then also I have a full-time job, so trying to navigate that and this other life that I really want to live, it's been really challenging as well. So it's just difficult at the minute, trying to like compartmentalize everything. And it isn't like when you're independently published, as you know, it's not just about writing, it's about managing everything else. I'm everything. So marketing and trying to it's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Ross says pressure is a privilege. You've been awesome, now feel the pain.
Oh yeah. That's it.
So does it bring any external pressure in terms of, like, you mentioned about the audiobook coming out and things like that? Did you find that loads of avenues started to open up after you'd won this award that you weren't necessarily expecting?
I think if I'm really honest, it kind of felt like for the first little bit afterwards, it did feel a bit like tumbleweed. Like this big thing had happened and like, okay, what now? And then it went a bit quiet and I was like, oh, right, well, that's interesting. And then like I think that was good, and I think it was intentional because I needed to come down. Like I could not make any rational decisions. Like I wanted to quit my job the next day. I was like, it's not that much money. So yeah, I think I did need that space. It'll be a month this week, and I think I just needed a bit of time as well. But it hasn't felt like loads of stuff has opened up really quickly, but now I'm starting to see it. Like in the last few days, I've had quite a few things come in which like, oh, I didn't see that coming, and I feel a lot calmer to be able to deal with it now. I'm probably not really portraying calm very well. I don't do that. But yeah, I do feel a bit more I've got my head back to a degree. Yeah,
absolutely. Halo says it's always hard to switch between full-time job manners and the writing depravity.
Yeah,
it's definitely true. And I think I'm going to play a little video now, which is called The Road to Writing. And when we get back from that very, very short clip, I'm just going to ask you to elaborate and talk about like how writing became something in your life when you realized you wanted to sort of take it on as a career and take things a little bit more seriously. So I'll just find and play this video and then we'll get into that. So here's The Road to Writing. Brilliant, Pip. So if you can take us back to when writing became a first thought in your mind.
So I would say I've always written stuff. I've never written long form, never written a novel, although I did start one when I was 17 and never finished it. And it's on a floppy disk somewhere, so that gives you an idea of how old I am. But we'll talk about this cycle of writing. So at the start of 2022, I went on a really, really inspiring trip to Scandinavia. It's like post-COVID trip that we booked. We couldn't go anywhere, so we're like, let's book this mad trip for when it all comes good. And we went to Norway and Sweden, to the Polar Express. It was in winter, so northern lights, lots of snow. It was incredible. Come back completely inspired and full of stories. Like I wanted to live that trip again and again. And I thought, how do I best do that? I'm going to send a dysfunctional family on that trip, and I'm going to make them, all hell's going to break loose. Like I wanted this to be like a nightmare trip for them and this kind of like epic story. And at that same point in my life, I was at a bit of a crossroads anyway. I'd already decided I was going to take a career break from banking, which is the kind of the career I fell into and never meant to be there. Spent 15 years doing it. So yeah, I took this career break. And yeah, just sort of felt really disillusioned with that. Like I'm unfulfilled, like I just wasn't in a good place with work and a bit burned out. So I took this break, didn't know what I was going to do. And I went, as all good stories start, it happened at the pub. So I went to the pub with my neighbor, little local pub, 2 pints in. He's like, so what are you going to do with your time? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to write a book, Matt. And he's like, you're going to write a book? Go on, write a book. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to write a book. 2 more pints. I completely forgot that I told Matt I was going to write a book. Problem is, Matt didn't forget. So I'm walking around here with my dog, and every time I see Matt, he's like, how's the book going? I'm like, oh God, I'm going to have to write the book now, aren't I? Or move house. And it was easier to write the book. So that's what I did with my time 4 months later. And every time I saw him, he was like my accountability buddy. He was like, so how's it going? And yeah, he's like beta reader, ARC reader. He's all over it now.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I think that was how I got started. And I think in that process, I found that thing that was missing. I found that spark. It brought me back, like from the soul crushing few years that I'd had in my career. Not that I had a good time as well, but from the bad days, it brought me back, and I realized who I was again without that. So
yeah, no, I love that, and I love the fact that Matt obviously helped you along and gave you that sort of accountability buddy element. Everyone needs a Matt in their life in that respect. So how did you manage then? Obviously, this leaving the pub, deciding you're going to write a novel, but managing that, working full time, getting the word count in. What was that like? Because a lot of people that we have on the show, they do struggle with that in terms of managing the balance between the two. And a lot of people say writing a book is a bit like running a marathon, and very difficult to do in terms of sustaining that element. And obviously, you've said about how important Matt was in terms of that accountability element. What things did you sort of learn along the way in that process?
So I was very fortunate with my first, because I was on a career break, so I did the whole thing whilst I wasn't working. So I managed it in 4 months. Then I actually went back to banking, and then got made redundant, which was one of the happiest days of my life. So yes, the universe wants me to be a full-time writer, but then kind of realized that no, not quite yet. Still hadn't published that first book, but I took that. I had a bit of gardening leave. I took that time to publish. Then I started a new job, and it was at that point that I hit the wall. I was like, okay, now I've got to work full-time, get my head around a new job in a completely different industry, and somehow write my next novel, which was the difficult second album, right? So I'm in that weird space then. So writing Pig was actually the award-winning novel I did working full-time, not the other one. And I was just very disciplined. So first one written in 4 months, and then took 2 years to get it good. The second one written in 9 months, and then took a lot less time to get it good because I was better at writing. But yeah, for me, it's discipline. I don't write every day. I do at the moment because I'm heading towards a deadline. But I try to make sure I've got deadlines set for myself. I will book things in. So I booked the cover designer in, and I knew that was a deadline. So I was like, okay, I've got to work towards that. I booked my editor. I've got to work towards that. And I call it my spreadsheet of doom. It literally is my daily word count, and I will green flag myself and red flag myself. And now I also have a column for like lame excuses. So if I don't hit my target, I have to give myself a reason why. And then I'll look back and go, no, you that's not good enough. Come on.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way of doing it. You mentioned briefly before about leaving the query trenches. And I think I wanted to probe you a little bit on that in terms of like why you decided to do that, because it's a choice that a lot of our viewers sort of have, because they try and they write the book that they're proud of, and they try and get it published, and then at some point it doesn't quite take off, and then they have a decision to make in terms of, do you back your writing, obviously like you have done, and know that it's good and know that at some point you're going to find your readership, or do you go back to a drawing board and write a different book and try that? So I'm just interested about your sort of thought process during the whole thing.
So when I finished my first novel, and naturally you're like, this is the best thing I've ever done, and I was convinced. And this was, I think I still did that thing that everyone tells you not to do. I queried too early. It wasn't polished. It was pretty crap, to be honest. And I realized quite quickly into that process, I think 3 or 4 query letters in, I was like, I need to revisit this. It's not working. Then I went through that long process of critiquing, going through basically a chapter a month in a critique group and tearing it apart and putting it back together again. And then I had a product that it was like, no, this is ready. I critiqued my query letter. I went on a querying podcast show. and it was ready. And I was, again, like really pushing it forward. I found all the right agents. I have the big red book, you know, I'm looking at all of the right things. And I targeted myself. I'm going to send 100 query letters. And if I haven't got success, then I'm going to self-publish. And listen to those words. I said to myself, if I haven't got success, then. So it felt to me at that point in time like it was a plan B. But something switched in my head. And what switched in my head was when I got a rejection letter. And the reason they rejected my story was because they said, sorry, get the words right. We have enough queer authors. And I was like, what? What do you mean you have enough? We have enough people like you. Okay, well, that doesn't feel right. I'm not waiting for permission. I don't want to be part of your quota. I just want to tell my story. And my story's like, yeah, okay, it's got a main character that's queer, but that's not what the story's about. It's not that. So I'm not trying to tick any boxes. So I just thought, no, that's it. I'm going to do this myself. And I'd also spoken to, you know, tried to weigh things up. I'd spoken to independently published authors. I've spoken to traditional authors. And I thought, actually, the better option for me is to do this independently. And it's a hard slog. Anybody that's done it knows it's a really hard slog, but I'm sure being traditionally published is hard too in different ways. So yeah, that's basically my journey to doing it. I just thought, no, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm not waiting for anybody to open a door. I can open that door myself.
No, absolutely. And does it add a certain layer of like more authenticity to your writing? Because like you said, you get your own editor, you get your own cover design and everything like that. So you've got a certain amount of autonomy. Whereas if a publisher was maybe dipping their hands in and they had, you know, a different agenda, maybe if they're talking about ticking boxes, and I know they would never say that, but, you know, at times you do get the impression that they are. So they could potentially edit your work in ways that you wouldn't want them to, but obviously in that moment, a lot of authors take the advice of the editor and go, oh yeah, take that out and I'll put this in and I'll change that. So they lose that sort of creativity, sort of autonomy over their story. So did you find that that was almost freeing in a way once you decided to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's probably one of the biggest, I guess, selling points for me for becoming an indie author, because I wanted to choose my own team. I wanted that creative control. And the traditional author I'd spoken with said that they were really disappointed with how it panned out for them, because they changed they think they published with covers they published it in a genre they didn't want it to be published in. She was like, it was contemporary fiction, it wasn't chick lit, I didn't want it to be called that. And I thought, well, I don't want that to happen to my story. I want to make those choices for it. And I've had the privilege of choosing. I've been very lucky as well, but I've chosen everybody I've worked with. You know, I found my editor, incredible editor, BD. I found my cover designer on social media, and I met the narrator for my audiobook at a conference in New York. And I wouldn't have had those choices. I wouldn't have built my own team if it wasn't for being independent. And I think that, yeah, as you say, it's really freeing. And I get to choose then what I listen to and what I don't listen to. I listen to everything, by the way. I do what they tell me still.
Yeah, brilliant. No, I love that. Yeah, lots of people saying that in the chat. That's awesome. And yeah, love that. So I'm going to play another little video now, which is called What's the Story? And when we get back, we do ask if you could give us the elevator pitch for Pig. I don't know if you've got it to hand or if you remember it off the top of your head. But if you could do that when we get back from this short video, that would be fantastic. So this is What's the Story? Oh, take it away, Pip, if you can.
Okay, sorry, right in. So I'll give you the 1 second elevator pitch, which is it is a chance encounter that sparks a life transformation. So that's like my tagline. But basically, Pig is a loose sapphic retelling of Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. It's a story about hope with a side of romance. So my main character, Alice, is 42, and she is a hot mess. So she's just basically walked away from her toxic lover. She's about to lose her job, ruin her really, really expensive heels. And then this chance encounter changes the course of everything. And I would say that it's not based on me. I am not Alice, although my mother-in-law would say I am a little bit like Alice because she's a bit of a disaster magnet. But I know what it feels like to be a bit lost in life. At the point where everyone thinks like, you're 42, you should have your shit figured out. Oh, sorry. But, that was a little bit like that struggle was a little bit the inspiration for Pig and for that main character's journey. So, I hit that milestone birthday. And minus the toxic ex and the heels, it's really just a story about getting a grip of your life and letting go of the bad stuff and making space for the good. So that's my pitch for Pig.
Halo says this sounds fantastic, which is, I completely agree. So romance, then, that's something that we always like to discuss on this show because I'm a hopeless romantic. I love lots of romance films. I often talk about them. But I've never tackled writing a romance because I don't know if I could do it. So how do you tackle a romance novel?
I'm back.
Yeah. So I just said, how do you tackle a romance novel?
Oh, how do I say? So for me, I didn't mean to write romance with. So my first book very much was romance. I didn't really mean to write romance when I wrote Pig. It was a subplot that sort of took over again. So I think I can't help it. So I'm not sure I set out to write it, but I think I had this thing in my head, like my character falls in love in Pig. Alice falls in love in Pig. She wasn't meant to. My characters take over when I'm writing and they just do what they want. I don't know if that's the same for others, but for mine, they're very much like very living, real people in my head. And I try to make them do things. I've got a plot. I try to make them stick to it. They just go off course all the time. Like, you're not meant to be doing that. So I remember having this conversation with my wife saying, Alice isn't going to sleep with Ash. That's the love interest. She's not going to sleep with Ash. Alice, of course, did sleep with Ash. I was like, you two weren't meant to do that. So yeah, I think for me, the romance just takes over. I think it's just in me. Like I could not write fantasy or sci-fi, but romance just feels like it's what comes out when I sit down to write.
Yeah, absolutely. People are saying not to get me started on romance because I think about that. But I suppose in terms of like, one of my things with romance is capturing those sort of small, intimate moments that, either make you laugh or build the character sort of relationship in a natural way that doesn't feel too like forced. So have you got any tips for anyone that's out there maybe looking to write a more authentic scene?
I think for me, like the best scenes, and it's like in life, they're not like these big romantic scenes. They're actually just everyday life scenes. That's what, for me, where the romance comes out. It's the small gestures. So in Pig, there was this whole thing around Alice just wanting somebody to know how she took her tea. And no one had ever bothered to find out before. And that the romantic gesture was that the love interest made her a cup of tea, and she'd noticed how she takes it. And it's those little everyday romantic gestures. And I think that's where the bigger plot comes out. I think those little things, and I think that's the same in life for sure. Like it's all that little stuff that adds up. But yeah, definitely, like for me, dialogue's the easiest part of writing for me. Like I just could write pages and pages of dialogue, and then I realized that my characters are floating nowhere and they're just talking. And I need to write bits around that. So yeah, it's usually in how they bounce off each other and finish each other's sentences, and argue as well. You've got to have the conflict, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you thought of the idea, then did Alice come first, or did the idea for the novel come first? And can you talk us through that sort of process of piecing it together? Did you pants the whole novel? Did you sit down and plot it out? Like, how did it?
To be honest, so there's a B story as well. So it was the B characters. So the chance encounter is where the B plot starts, and it was that story that came first, which is a character called, I don't want to give spoilers, but there was a character called George and a character called Bernard, and their story really is what Alice's story is built around. So they're like George and Bernard. They frame the whole like Pygmalion thing. And the mystery of discovering who George is part of like Alice's quest, and when she falls in love. But in terms of like what came first, really they did, and the name came first, and then this idea around this crazy woman that was going to come into their life, and it was all going to be messy. But she then sort of took over as like the A plot. And in terms of plotting it, this is chaos. This book, it has got 3 timelines. I don't mean to do this to myself, but it has 3 timelines that are interwoven. And I think I was just a vessel for this. I really do, because this story wrote itself. The characters wrote it for me. I got to know them really well, and then it kind of just evolved from there. I had minimal tidying up to do at the end, but I did plot. So I usually try and plan 10 chapters in advance, and then I try and stick to them, and then the characters have other ideas. But yeah, in terms of like keeping track of the timelines, I do have, and I always go back as well. So if things have changed, I'll go back and fix it on my like master like post-it note board. That I have a digital post-it note board. I'll go back and fix everything so I can make sure, oh, that's happened there, that's happened there. So yeah, kind of reverse plot, like, oh yeah, now I've got to go and fix everything that my characters have undone in terms of where we were going with this. But I love that part as well. Like, it's such a wonderful like journey of discovery. Like I'm almost writing like, oh, what's going to happen today? And then like being really surprised by it, and then feeling a little bit like I'm losing the plot, like literally losing the plot.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds like a very creative but productive process that you've got there as well, which is brilliant.
There's always a book at the end of it. I've learned that twice so far. So yeah, hopefully it happens a 3rd time.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to pick this book up then, and they were thinking, oh yeah, this sounds great, what would you say to them in terms of prompts and things are always a big thing in terms of, if you like this, then you might like this. What would you say to somebody who's not read one of your books before in terms of what they're going to get and why they think you think they would enjoy? So
it's a tough one with Pig, because I don't think it's like many. I've struggled with comp titles for Pig. It's like when I first started writing it, I felt like it was a little bit Maggie O'Farrell. So what's it called? Before You Were Gone? Sorry, I've got it somewhere. Sorry, I have many books on them. I think it's Before You Were Gone. It was the one she wrote like 25 years ago. Like I think it might have been her debut, but that's quite a depressing story. Whereas Pig's quite uplifting. So it's like but then like comparing myself to Maggie O'Farrell feels a little bit out there. Probably like my favorite author of all time is David Nichols. So I take a lot of inspiration from how he writes, how he plots, like kind of makeup of his stories, particularly with my first novel. But yeah, with Pig, I think that transformation journey is quite key. So yeah, I need to spend more time thinking about comp titles.
Yeah, I mean, David Nichols and Farrell are 2 brilliant authors to compare your writing to. So yeah, definitely.
The inspirations for sure.
Yeah. So obviously, one of the things that they do really well, and you've touched on this in terms of create chaos for the characters. As a writer then, how do you bring that chaos that you slowly build and create? How do you manage to sort of bring it back in to get to a sort of end product?
That is a great question, Chris, and I'm not entirely sure I know the answer. I think because I might be in the thick of it at the moment. I'm 2/3 through number 3, and I'm in the chaos bit. I'm kind of like going, how am I going to resolve all of these things? And my process at the moment, like, because I've gone through that twice now, and I'm now starting to trust myself, and I'm trusting that I will find those answers as I go through this. If I really don't know where something is going, I will step away from it, and I will I've tried this trick as well. I heard this somewhere, like ask your main character. So before you go to bed, say to your main character, what do you want to happen? Where is this going to go? And I've done this, and like 9 times out of 10, I wake up with the answer in my head. Like it's like, I don't know if it's unlocking something in there. And I don't really know how that works, but yeah, that's I don't know. I don't know how it all comes together. And I think last time it is still kind of feels a bit like that mystical process. I'm like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. So that chaos sort of resolved itself. It must be in there, right? It must be already in there. I don't know where I find it.
Just gotta find it. So you mentioned before, obviously, about dialogue and the fact that you love writing dialogue and your characters talking. So what do you think has sort of crafted your ear for dialogue in terms of like being able to write good, convincing dialogue? I
did do a drama degree when I did a joint honours degree as my undergrad. Theology and drama. And I spent a lot of time, like, I used to love writing scripts back then. So it's kind of like that duology of like back and forth. But I think listening to conversations. So someone once said to me, you must be a good listener if you can write good dialogue. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do listen. So I think, and I find quite like kind of, those like family meals where like everyone's bouncing off each other and there's like just random things being said. And you're like, if anybody was watching this, if my family were on Gogglebox, people like, they're the most ridiculous people because they're just saying the most ridiculous things. So taking like inspirations from those. And now I use that saying all the time. Like when people are like, oh, you're going to write this in your next book. And I do think, well, anything you say or do may be used in my next book. So be careful. And I'm constantly writing down things people say now. I'm like, that's hilarious. That's going in. So I have like a big list of things that I'd like to put in the book someday. So yeah, I think just kind of paying attention to the things going on around you. I don't think there's a day goes by if you're out and about in public that you wouldn't find something interesting to put in a book.
Yeah, definitely. So with Pig then, I'm going to ask you a twofold question. What was the most challenging thing about writing it? And then what are you most proud of now that it's finished?
I think the most challenging thing I'd say is probably spending so much time with the toxic ex of Alice. So she needs a formal diagnosis, let's put it that way, which I have in the book I'm writing at the moment. It is kind of a follow-on to this. So I've now given her a formal diagnosis. So she has a narcissistic personality disorder, which you don't know in Pig, but you could probably guess. So spending a lot of time with her, she was great to write. She was fantastic to write, but she was also quite difficult because like she takes it out on Alice. So I think that, I'm feeling all of those things too as I'm writing it. So I think it can be quite challenging. She's like, okay, these are emotions to deal with. I wasn't drawing on personal experience, but I'm an empath. So I think about like how other people feel in those situations. So some of that stuff was quite hard. But in terms of like I say, knitting up that chaos, that was challenging. So I remember the times thinking, I'm not sure where this is going. I really don't know where this book is going. And then I remember like getting to the end going, oh, that's what was going to happen. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping I'm about to hit that again. And I've forgotten the second part of your question. I'm sorry.
Just what are you most proud of with this book?
I genuinely think it's really good. Like, I did the audio proof for the audio a couple of weeks ago before it got submitted for approval with ACX. And yeah, I just listening to it, I kept thinking, I wrote that. like my narrator, Marissa Callan, did an incredible job, like genuinely brought it to life in a way that I could only dream of it coming to life. But still, I'm like, they were my words. And then, I mean, it's literally just been released. I don't think anybody else has listened to it in full yet. But I was laughing and crying and thinking, yeah, this is good. This was good. And yeah, I suppose to feel like that, because I don't know if this happens to everyone, but like after my first one, after a little while, at first I was like, this is the best thing I've ever done. And then after a little while, I started thinking, oh no, maybe it wasn't that good. No, and then you get the doubts of thinking, oh, don't read that one, read the second one, that's better. And I wonder if that will happen again. But at the moment, I'm still in kind of like that bubble of Pig going, yeah, no, it's the best thing I've ever done. So yeah, I don't know if that changes over time.
Yeah, maybe. Obviously, we hope there's a lot more to come. So we're going to get into the third part of the show now, which is community questions. So if you're watching now and you want to send in a question, then please do. Now's your opportunity to do that. And we're going to ask some of our staple questions as well. So this is community questions. Brilliant. So I'll start with a few staple questions that we have from the show. But like I've just said, if you've got a question, please feel free to pop it in the chat. And yeah, we'll do our best to answer it. So one of the first staple questions that we have is, if you could take any character from fiction and make that character your own, which character would you choose and what would you do with them?
That is a hard question. Okay, I'm just going to go off the cuff. I'm going to go the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, because I've got Alice in front of me here. So Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, and I would give the Mad Hatter a real like backstory. Like, how did the Mad Hatter end up mad? That's why I want to find out, like, what drove him to be like he is. And that's a really great idea for a book. I need a pen.
That is a brilliant idea. And it's also, we've had over 300 interviews and nobody's ever said that. And it excited me as much about a premise.
There we go then. Worth exploring.
Lewis Carroll sort of his rights sort of disappeared, or?
Yeah, I think that was one thing I did notice with I found out with Pygmalion. It was the rights had gone, so I could use the quote at the beginning,
Nice.
which was royalty free, so it was great. So
yeah, I mean,
days.
maybe
yeah, that's it. Watch this space.
Yeah,
I'd make the Mad Hatter a woman, though. Definitely, I can't. Yeah, I think I'd have to do that.
But again, if you got free license to play around in there, then yeah, why not? The next question that we have is, if you could take the ending of any fiction, be it TV, books, film, and change it, what would you take the ending of and what would you do? Okay,
I've got the off the cuff answer for this one. One Day by David Nichols. I think everybody hates that ending. Why did you do that? That's all I would say. I met the man and legend last year, and I think I said the very same thing. I would change the ending for that story for sure. There was no need for that. It was a perfect love story. Why?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Again, I'm going to go down the romance route. But I know what you're saying, but one of the best moments in that book for me came from after that event happened, and somebody wrote a letter about the person, and that letter absolutely broke me. So it was one of the moments that I sort of remembered, and I remember thinking, wow, that was really good. So I agree, but at the same time, I don't think I would change it, because I wouldn't have that experience of reading the letter that somebody had sent. But yeah, definitely like to see a different version. That'd be good. Yeah,
I read I was just going to say, I read a book recently called Palm Meridian by Grace. I'm not sure how to say her last name. I think it's Flahiv. Palm Meridian is the book. It's basically set in Florida, in a retirement village for lesbian women or sapphic women. And it is an incredible book. The ending broke me. Like, I don't recall sobbing at a book as much as I just sobbed. And I read the ending really, really quickly, because it was quite tense and ramped up at the end. And I read it really quickly. And then I was going to read it again, because I thought I scanned it too fast. I thought I was over consuming. I couldn't even look at the words again. I'm like, no, I can't. And I was just sobbing. So I changed the end of that as well. I even messaged her and said there was no need for that.
Yeah. And you said, I love this book. So,
it was very, very good.
yeah, definitely hitting a chord there. Anya also has a question. We do get some random questions, so this is a bit of a random one. But again, I like it. And if you've got questions, bring it in. So if you could camp in the wild where a cryptid, troll, Loch Ness monster, Chupacabra, Bigfoot, etc. lurked, what cryptid would you choose, and what weapon would you bring?
I wouldn't want to kill them. I'd befriend them. I mean, I think that the Loch Ness monster, not the Loch Ness monster, the Bigfoot would be pretty cool to me. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like the one from, what's the film? There was one where, is it Monsters Inc? Yeah, it's Monsters Inc. Then they get banished and they meet Bigfoot, and he's really cool. He brings them like ice cones. That Bigfoot.
Yeah, no, definitely. That'd be cool. I don't really know, to be honest, on that question. The Loch Ness monster seems to be more pictures cropping up recently, so maybe.
Wonder why.
Yeah, suddenly.
What could be generating that?
Absolutely. While we've mentioned that, what is your sort of like? Obviously, this is something that we talk in the writing community about in terms of AI and bringing that in. What's your opinion in terms of like what people are doing potentially with it, and just your thoughts in general?
I would say I'm very anti AI from anything in the creative process. Like, I don't want it to touch my writing. I don't want it to be any part of what I'm doing, because what's the point of me in that case? I use tools like Pro Writing Aid, and I guess that kind of touches the edges. But I use it to help me with commas, because otherwise I just sprinkle them in like glitter. Like, I'm like, have some commas. And then my poor editor is like, well, please learn to use commas. So I think I don't want to use it. I guess with the challenge of people's work being stolen to feed the machine that now powers it, I don't want my work to be used in that way either. So I feel like it kind of is taking from other people as well. But then equally, I use it a little bit in my job. So I can see it does have a place. So I will give an example of where I have found it useful. So I am currently writing one of my characters is a psychotherapist. Now, I don't know what a psychotherapist does day to day. So it's not part of my creative process, but I have asked AI to tell me what a typical psychotherapist day to day looks like. So for me, that's cut out the lazy part of me going and finding a psychotherapist to do research with. I've asked AI to tell me what one does every day, and then I can kind of use that to help inform that. Yeah. But I'm not going to then go, can you write a day in the life of, and then feed that into my novel, because that's just not what I want to do. It just takes the fun out of it for me.
No, exactly. I think the whole sort of process, like we said before about writing a book, is a bit like writing a marathon, and using AI in a capacity where you're going to use it to put bits in the book or bits in your creative writing process, I think is like getting an Uber to do the London Marathon. Like, you get to the start, go get to the end, and then you go, yeah, I did the marathon. It's like,
you're cheating it. If you're like cheating yourself, like, what's the point? Like, I like this for the process. I like this for how it makes me feel. I like it for the days when I pick my wife up from the train station, I'm laughing hilariously at my own jokes. I'm not going to laugh at a joke from AI. I mean, I might, but I probably won't. Like, because it's come from here. It's real, and it's come from the heart. And I just don't see why you'd want to squeeze that out of your process.
No, absolutely not.
But I really like that analogy, the London. I think that's perfect. That's exactly it.
Yeah, don't cheat yourself out, people. Write the book, because even if nothing came of the book, the process of writing it is the reward in itself. So yeah, just try and remember that, everyone, if you're listening. So we have another question. So Ross says, what one piece of writing advice have you heard that you think is absolute bollocks?
See, I feel less bad for saying shit now. I didn't know if I wasn't allowed to swear. We hadn't talked about that. If he can say bollocks, I can say shit. So I don't. It's not for me. So again, I'm not going to trash what someone else wants to do. But someone said before that if you write it and then you should just delete everything you've written and then write it back from memory, like rewrite the whole thing. I couldn't think of anything worse. Like, why would I pour all of those hours into writing this thing just to throw it in the bin and then rewrite the whole thing? That I can't do that. I'm a meticulous first drafter. I'm very slow. So there's not a chance I would ever throw away anything. I'm keeping it all. It's all staying in, all of it.
That sounds like someone with a photographic memory just trying to take the mick out of writers by going, still here, I'll get rid of it.
I mean, I get like bits, like there's bits that are really clunky and awkward, and maybe just chuck them away after a while, but also step away from them and come back to them, and then they become less clunky and awkward. When you can see it with a bit of objectivity when you've moved away from it, I think you can fix it, but not the whole thing. No. My worst nightmare.
Absolutely. So obviously, once you've written your book and it goes out into the world, obviously other people then get hold of it and they read it. What have you sort of found with the readership so far that have picked up your novels?
As in like feedback that I've had?
Yeah, or feedback or interactions, or like if you had a moment that's sort of taken you back a little bit and you've thought, wow.
Yeah, I think particularly with my first novel, I think I hadn't realized that I'd written a character that was very polarizing. I just didn't see her flaws in the same way that other people did. It wasn't the main character, it was the love interest. And she gets a lot of sticks. Even the people who really like the book still go hard on her. And I'm like, oh, really? I would defend her. So I find that, and I think if I could rewrite that book, I would probably do it from a dual perspective. I haven't written a dual perspective yet in quite that way. I haven't done it like character to character. I've done it in different timelines, but not in the same timeline. But I think if I was able to give her a voice, people might understand and have a bit more empathy, because obviously I was in her head. So I know that she wasn't a bad person, but she did some questionable things. So, but what I do often get from that first book is that it was quite an emotional read. So people are very invested in another character in that book, and her journey is always one that resonates really well. So that always takes me back. And when people say like, "Oh, that book made me cry," like several times, I'm like, "Wow, okay." Like that you can move someone to tears is an incredible thing. I can evoke that strength of emotion, but then equally as well with that character they don't like. When they don't like her, they really don't like her. And I will get some trash reviews for that because I really hate that character. I'm like, if I have given you that much rage with my character and you're giving me a 1 star for it, then that's a win, because I have provoked you to have a reaction by words on a page. Like that's a powerful thing. So I'm going to take that positive spin, and those little occasional 1 stars, I can live with them.
So when you create characters, obviously that create such an emotional reaction. And as you said before, you might go to bed talking or asking your character about what they want the outcome to be. When you get that close to your characters, obviously, again, you mentioned as well that you're revisiting some of them as well in this next book. Do you find it that they are constantly there in terms of like, oh, I wonder what they're doing now? And do you have a sort of plan long term for these characters over a series of books?
So with Pig, I do have a bit of a plan. So I hadn't realized when I finished it, until I finished it, sorry, that it was going to have more parts to it. So it's kind of like the lead character in the book I'm writing at the moment isn't the main character in Pig. It's not Alice. It's a different character who's kind of more of a side character, and it becomes her story and how she relates to the narcissist in a different way. So so I hadn't planned for that to happen, but then I got to the end and I was like, oh, there's another story here. And I think there's another one. So I think this might be one of 3. But yeah, I'm enjoying my time with them. I wasn't ready for it to be over. I wasn't ready for that story to be finished. And I think I might go back and do something with my first. But then I also recently had a really good idea for another book. It's about this Mad Hatter. I'm joking. No, we were on holiday and I had a really good idea. I nearly got hit on the head by a coconut. And I had this like inspiration of like, if I had been hit by the coconut and it had then sent me into this like parallel like life, and I was living a different version of my reality, like, and I thought about what about having a bunch of different. So anyway, I'm going to get hit by the coconut in the story, and that's probably going to be my next book when I finish this trilogy.
Nice.
Maybe.
And there'll be some serious browsing of hats in that book, I should imagine.
Yeah.
So Halo's got a question. She says, do you like to inspire your readers or emotionally
Emotionally mutilate? I think possibly my first book might have done the latter. Pig is definitely about inspiration. It's about hope. There's so many seeds of hope in Pig, and I think I needed that story in my life at that time. I needed to know that I'd turned 42 and Alice had turned 42, and that it's okay, it's all right not to have it all together. So yeah, that one's very much about hope. But the first one, it still ends on a positive note, but it will make you cry. If you have a soul, it will make you cry.
So how do you do that then? Obviously, if you've got the main message sort of being that hope that's needed, obviously for hope to hit home, you need to have your characters in a bad place in order for them to sort of, you drip feed this hope in, and it slowly builds over time. So how do you manage to mentally go into the dark places in order to explore the potential on the other side?
I think that's what I was saying, probably inarticulately trying to say before, that with Pig, the dark places were how Alice had been treated. So she'd really been kicked down. And I think that the story starts where she's an utter mess. Like, she is a literal mess, an emotional mess. She literally just walked away from this toxic person. And I think possibly drawing upon like my drama degree and like the method acting and putting myself in that situation, and how I've seen other people in my life going through difficult things, and just drawing upon your own emotion. And even with my first book, as I said, it will make you cry. I drew upon personal experiences. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I drew upon personal experiences to make that. I think it was probably a bit cathartic, really. It was therapy writing that story down, because the really sad thing that happens, it happens to all of us at some point. But I wrote the matriarch that we all love, and that character is beloved in that story, and she was based on reality. So I think if you draw from bits of your life, then you can make those characters really come alive with that.
Brilliant. So Pip, before we go, where can people buy the books, and where can people stalk you on all of the socials should they wish to?
So I mean, my internet office is Instagram. So I'm at Pip Writes Fiction, and I've kept it really easy. So my website is the same. It's just pipwritesfiction.com. And then I'm on Amazon, of course. So yeah, everything's on Amazon. And as I say, Pig did come out in audiobook yesterday, and it genuinely, like, I'm going to say this for my narrator, not for me, because it is such an incredible performance. So even if you're not listening to it for my story, listen to it for her performance, because it's absolutely astonishing. So yeah, so that's available on Audible and everywhere you get your audiobooks.
Brilliant. Absolutely love that. Right. So that's the end of our show. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to ask you one more question, actually. Could you recommend a book to us that you've really enjoyed by somebody maybe that you know as an author that you feel like deserves a little bit more spotlight? Put on them just before we leave, and then we'll wave our goodbyes and we'll see everyone on Friday.
Yeah, so actually I've got an indie author friend who's just about to release a book called King Love, which comes out next month. But I think it was her second book is called Meet Me in Berlin, and the premise is awesome. So it's basically these two people that it's like a love story. They meet in Berlin, and then they say they're going to come back to the same place every year at the same time. And it kind of goes on. So yeah, that's a really awesome story. That's what hooked me into her work. So her name's Samantha Valentine. I'm definitely check her out. Indie author.
Love that. Yeah, love a good recommendation on the show. Yeah, so thank you again for joining us. Yeah, thank you for watching this back or listening back. Thank you, Halo. She says, amazing interview. Congrats on the award. You should definitely have it to hand in the future.
I know, like...
Be that person. Yeah, just, it is. Glory. But yeah, no, thank you very much. It's been a fantastic interview. Lots of really good advice. So yeah, other than that, it's goodbye from me. And yeah, we'll give you a little wave off.
Awesome. And, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See you Friday.